Yo, what's good, guys? Back with another video. This one is going to be my best video to date. Straight breakdown, holding nothing back. How I scaled a DTC brand to $13 million with YouTube ads, right? So I'm going to break down everything, give you guys context about the story, and then tell you about the process, the creative process, the landing page process, and just the media bank process as well. So make sure you guys take notes. Like, this is literally course level shit, and I'm giving it away for free. Right, so without further ado, let's just get straight into it, right? So here's some context, right? This brand, they're a client of mine, they were crushing on Meta. Typical story, right? Doing very well on Meta, but they were too reliant on that one platform. And then guess what happened, right? Their BM, their business manager, got disabled. And their revenue just started to bleed out. And trust me, I hear this all the time, right? And I always tell people diversify. So that's going to be a very big lesson, throughout this video. Make sure you diversify, right? So that's the context, right? And they had to think, okay, like, holy shit, Meta is, bleeding out. What do I do? So they thought, okay, let's just test Google, let's test YouTube, right? So they came to me saying, you know what, let's start with YouTube, and then from there expand into Google search, PMax, Google Shopping, all that sort of stuff, right? So here's the thing, right? They were in a tight situation because sometimes when your business manager gets shut down, like, even if you do have good connections and insiders, it can be tough to get that shit back, right? So, they had no YouTube account, no channel history, none of that. Google, none of that shit, right? So we had to set that shit up from scratch. And obviously, revenue was coming down. So like they weren't even making money. So like it was a very tight situation, right? But we were able to turn it around. It took a lot of work and focus. But, I'm going to break down exactly what we've done, right? So here was the strategy, right? And why was YouTube the answer, right? And this is why I recommend getting into YouTube ads, especially if you're doing good on Meta. First things first, consumer mindset, right? So like the consumer mindset when somebody watches YouTube is they're in discovery mode or educational mode, right? And the reason why YouTube, you're able to scale aggressively and, scale to big numbers with it is ultimately because it's prospecting, right? It's not like your typical Google search or shopping where you're limited by, search terms and by demand, right? That's more so middle of funnel stuff. YouTube, top of funnel, right? So there's like really no cap, very similar to Facebook, right? And then in terms of the content, people is a good way to build trust, is a good way to explain your product. VSLs work really well. I'm going to break that down as well. And, having longer form videos is going to allow you to really educate your user about your product and your offer, right? Also, what's really important to actually understand is nobody really talks about YouTube ads, which is kind of surprising because now we're in 2026, right? Like people, of course, Facebook ads, TikTok ads, Google ads are starting to get traction. But YouTube ads, which is obviously a part of Google ads, I don't really see a lot of people talking about it. It hasn't been cracked yet, right? And most e-com brands underinvest here, and it's definitely a blue ocean. So you definitely want to, tap into that. So here was a short-term action plan, right? So obviously we were trying to get the Meta business BM back, but we were like, we don't want to waste too much time. So let's just go all in on YouTube. And what helped, obviously, is they had a good creative system, and this is very important. I'm going to break that down. And they already had creatives ready to run, right? So we, transitioned to YouTube, and typically this is what happened, right, and how it played out. So week one, just tested a bunch of stuff, right? So we tested the top creative from Meta with YouTube Shorts. And we actually found a promising ROAS from the beginning, right? And this is something I recommend for you guys in the testing phase is you don't need to reinvent the wheel or do anything fancy. If you guys have good creatives on Meta, test it with YouTube Shorts, right? So launch a demand gen campaign, only target YouTube Shorts. I'm going to break down more about the campaign setup, throughout this video, but that's like a quick win or something that you guys should implement ASAP, right? And then weeks 2 to 4, right? What we done is we adapted those winning creatives into 16 to 9 videos, right? So into like the in-feed and in-stream YouTube videos. So obviously this way we're actually able to sell the offer more. It's longer hook. It has a longer hook. We're able to explain it more. It's a longer video. We're able to educate the person more about, our product and our offer, right? And the CTAs, we changed it. We made it optimized for YouTube. And this just drastically helped out. And again, the reason why this was able to, we were able to get fast proof of concept is because they had a good offer, a good website, right? And they had good creatives and a good creative system, right? So that's very, very important, right? So make sure if you guys have those things in place, I'm very confident that, YouTube will be a no-brainer play for you guys, right? So obviously now let's start like really breaking it down, right? So obviously we got proof of concept now. How did we start stabilizing it and scaling, right? So what we've done is well, they had a good team already, right? So we were working directly with their creative team and really just, making sure they understand how to make good creatives and good hooks optimized for YouTube, right? And one non-negotiable was we were testing 2 new VSLs a week. This is actually it works really well for YouTube. So it's definitely something that you guys want to implement and start working on. And then, this just improved overall quality, right? So the optimized videos, the 16:9s, the VSLs, it just it lasted 60 to 90 days in terms of performance and stability, right? Compared to, the initial first test with the YouTube Shorts, we're starting to become more consistent and starting to spend more on YouTube, right? Here was a basic framework of what we've done for scaling, right? So anything above a 2, we were able to scale, right? And typically, the way we scale is 10 to 20% when ROAS is above a 2. So every 3 days, ROAS is above a 2. And of course, this is based on your KPIs, right? So it's going to be different. But for us, it was above a 2. We increased the budget by 10 to 20%. This isn't like Facebook where you can just double budgets overnight. It's, it's a gradual process. And then, it does compound fast, actually. And as a result, we were able to grow from $750 in spend to $3,000 a day in spend over the space of 60 days, right? So this is going to be important as well, right? The funnel evolution. Having a strong funnel as well is going to be very, very important, right? So what we done, stage 1, we used what already converted, right? So you guys are probably doing this already, just regular PDP that was converting on Meta. And again, we were in a predicament because the business manager got shut down, so we had to move fast, right? So we didn't really have a lot of time to start making pages and whatnot. When we did get proof of concept, we obviously did. We invested a lot of time into building strong pages and strong VSLs and creatives, right? But in the beginning, PDP. And like I said here, speed mattered more than optimization. Stage number 2, like I just said, we started to create educational landing pages, right? Explaining the product benefits and the use cases, right? So advertorials work really well for YouTube, VSLs, listicles, all of that sort of stuff, right? And this just absolutely improved the conversion rate from cold YouTube audiences, right? So again, now, when we started to implement the proper system, because we had proof of concept, we're like, okay, let's now go all in on YouTube. Things are drastically starting to improve because the inputs improved, right? So that's very important. Of course, if the inputs are going to improve, the outputs are going to improve as well. This is actually very important. So we matched the funnel to the creative angle, and I'm going to discuss this more on the media buying aspect of YouTube ads. But the advertorial page, it was, in a story-driven pre-sale format. I know some of you guys are probably already doing this, that are doing good on Meta. The VSL landing page, it was continuing with the ad message. And then we did have a few quiz funnels that we tested for audience qualification, right? And remember, traffic first, funnel second, right? So don't overbuild funnels before traffic works. You want to get proof of concept first, right? You don't want to invest all this time and money into all of these things just to, find out that YouTube's not going to work. I'll be honest, YouTube is not going to work for most brands. You need to have a strong AOV, a strong offer. There needs to be good demand and just a good overall ecosystem, right? And so that was in terms of the funnel. That was, what we done. That was the evolution of it. Now, going into the media buying aspect, right? So in terms of the actual YouTube campaign structure, right, for cold traffic. So what we done, and this is actually kind of important, we didn't bundle everything into one campaign, right? So what you want to do is you want to have one campaign per angle, right? Because with Google, right, quality score is very, very important, right? So you want to have very high ad relevance. That's going to be important. So what we done, one campaign per angle. So let's say we had one angle, we're going to have broad ad group or ad group where we're stacking interests that are relevant. And then we want to make sure that, the creatives are also relevant to the interest and the angle, but then also to the landing page, right? So that's going to be very important. And then we just replicated that for different angles. So this is actually definitely and this is how you're able to scale horizontally as well, right? Because if you just always focus on one angle, you're really limiting your levels to scale, right? All of the big players, they're scaling by angles and they really understand the avatar on a very deep level. And then obviously warm traffic was a conversion booster. So like video viewers, website views, all of that sort of stuff. And then, in terms of the creative rotation, we had multiple VSL angles running simultaneously. So, referencing back to this point about the campaigns, we also had weekly creative introductions, and then we obviously shifted a budget towards the winning angles and the winning campaigns, right? And obviously, this is going to de-risk you. When you're scaling multiple angles, you're not reliant. It's the same way as being reliant on meta ads, right? You don't want to be over reliant on just one campaign or one angle, right? So you definitely want to scale horizontally, not always think about how can I scale vertically. And then obviously the more segmentation, the better the control, right? So separate angles, separate audiences, clearer signals, separate creative angles, faster learning. And then obviously the structure allowed us to scale safely and efficiently. So this is how you start to build out the ecosystem, right? Because YouTube is very good for top of funnel prospecting, right? But obviously there's so much more opportunity in just building out the whole ecosystem of Google Ads. And that's something I've been preaching for a long time, especially on Twitter. And this is something I'm doing for many, many clients right now, is as a result of scaling on YouTube, right, on top of funnel, brand search spiked. So we cleaned that up with a brand search campaign, right? So brand search volume increased 300% after we started scaling on YouTube. We launched a branded search campaign and cleaned up all of the branded search terms. And this just absolutely helped out with just overall efficiency, right? So we got a 7.8 ROAS. High efficiency, but again, limited by scale because you're limited by search term volume, right? That's very important. But it's a very, very strong way to build the ecosystem and be as efficient as possible. And again, the profit here, you're able to reinvest back into more creatives, VSLs, pages, all of that sort of stuff. Another important thing that we've done that helped out a lot was a PMAX cleanup, right? So within the PMAX campaign, we had one full build asset group where we had the winning creatives, images, winning audiences, winning ad copy, and then the winning search terms. We bundled all of that up, and then we ran a asset group, so we're targeting that. And then we also had a feed-only asset group. So this is only going to target the shopping network, and this is very important as well because shopping, there's good ability to scale, in my opinion, and honestly, like a lot of success within Google Ads, apart from YouTube, is going to come through Google Shopping, right? So I didn't mention here the importance of having an optimized Google Merchant Center. I'll probably make a video about that in the future, but this is going to be very important to have a good quality score to outrank your competition and to just be very efficient, right? So again, this was targeting the best audiences, keywords, and then this just supplemented the whole ecosystem. The result of this, 3x ROAS, and this was, obviously way more scalable than the branded stuff, right? Because you're not as limited, right? Because here you're able to target some top of funnel stuff, but for the most part, a lot of middle funnel stuff. And then just remarketing, right? You always want to do this, and this is obviously is going to help out as well. So that's what was done. Some advanced optimization, little like hacks and tips that actually did help out is this is actually very important, right? In terms of tracking. So YouTube uses the way YouTube reports data is very delayed. Right, so we actually used Hyros. You can use other platforms, but we find Hyros to be good, and we're actually able to scale the same day. Right, we're able to get live data, and this actually helps out a lot. So that's definitely something when you're starting to scale up, you want to definitely implement, right? Because this changes a lot of things. And then we obviously had a clear scaling framework, right? So we had a disciplined way of increasing budgets, killing, creatives or killing audiences and that sort of stuff, right? And that just started to compound more and more as time went by. And then also a really good hack is we found that, once we started to get over 10,000 monthly site visits from YouTube and search, we actually paused the spend from midnight to 5 a.m. This was just inefficient, right? We're just blowing budget through there. So we just done a day parting strategy, and this just really helped out, right? It's not going to be a make or break, but as you can imagine, when you're spending more and more and more, tiny tweaks, a 1, 2, 3% win is going to drastically help out with like the whole ecosystem, right? So that's just one mindset you're going to evolve into as you're spending more. And that's like really what separates like 9, 8-figure brands from like 6, 7-figure brands, right? Cool. So that's that. Now here's something that you guys can apply for yourself, right? A 4-week validation framework. So week 1 to 2, right? What you want to do is, the goal here is, will YouTube work for my offer, right? So that's one thing you're going to be asking yourself. But what you want to do is adapt 3 of your best performing videos into 16 and 9. Alongside this, test YouTube Shorts as well. Again, if you have the budget, of course, adapt it. And if you have a good creative strategy, adapt it to 16 by 9. We find this to work really well. And then what you want to do is launch a single campaign with your best angle and do broad targeting, right? Again, budget is going to depend on many things, but I recommend 300 to 500 a day, or just do 5 times your CPA. Again, here you're not looking to be profitable out the gate. Proof of concept. So anything above a 1 ROAS, even if it's slightly less, I think you should keep testing and keep giving it a go, right? And then what happens here is, once you have proof of concept, is you want to start scaling the winners. Killing is to some degree similar to Facebook ads, right? You want to keep scaling what's working and then obviously kill what's not working. And this should improve overall efficiency and ROAS. And once you're at that point, you're like, okay, you know what? Things are stable. I'm getting statistically significant data over a good period of time. So this is going to give you confidence now to actually invest into building out strong funnels, strong creatives. And this is where the fun begins, to be honest with you. Like once you have proof of concept, you're like, okay, like I can do this shit, right? So you're going to build that out and then honestly, like you just start scaling through the system I just told you about by testing by different angles, matching the creatives with the funnels, all of that sort of stuff, right? And then in terms of, where am I here? All right, cool. So just in terms of the results, right? So we spent 4.97. So let's just say $5 million to generate 13 million, right? And this obviously, as you can imagine, helped out a lot because not only did it help them survive the BS from Meta, they also now discovered a new channel that they can just scale aggressively on, right? And obviously now that Facebook is back, so that's going to help out as well. But just knowing that you're able to diversify into another channel and get good results, it's just going to de-risk you massively, right? And that's just the whole point of business. You want to diversify because especially Facebook, right? Like being too dependent on them. I hear so many horror stories all the time, right? So that's one thing that you guys need to, bear in mind. And then in terms of just the spend split, so YouTube was 65% of the spend, right? So this was driving a lot of the demand. This was a top of funnel prospecting stuff. We captured a lot of that with the branded search. And then PMAX, the non-branded search and shopping, 20% of spend was allocated there, and then display, we had 5% spend. So that was like retargeting and that helped out as well. And, here are some core principles, right? So what worked versus what didn't work, right? So obviously being shit and making creatives or just not having a system behind that and behind building strong funnels, you need to have that in place first if you really want to scale to big numbers, right? Being too dependent on one channel as well, never recommended, right? And all of the big players, they're not dependent on one channel. Like maybe do it in the beginning to get proof of concept, but with time, you definitely want to diversify. And then only, using platform only attribution. Like, using Hyros helped us out a lot. So obviously that's one thing I recommend is just being able to see true live raw data. You're able to scale same day. You're actually able to get faster feedback loops, right? And then what did work, moving fast, having strong creatives, going multi-channel, live attribution, and then obviously being able to consistently test new pages and new creatives, right? And you evolve into that, right? Like it's not overnight. Like the more money you make, the more you're going to reinvest into this system and it's just going to have a compounding effect, right? The ultimate insight, honestly, and I've been doing this shit for 7 years now. The biggest lesson I've learned personally is just, it's e-commerce, it's a giant ecosystem, right? Everything is going to supplement each other. So like, don't view any one specific thing as a silver bullet. Everything plays its role. Everything has its purpose, right? So you want to make sure you optimize everything, right? Because you can have the best media buying and the best hacks and the best campaign structure. But if your offer is shit, if your website speed is trash, if your website is trash, it's not going to work. And vice versa. You can have the best offer, but if your creatives are trash or your media buying is trash, it's not going to work, right? So you need to get everything in order. And then before you start, here's just a few questions and a mini criteria. Do you have a proven offer and do you have a strong AOV, right? Anything above $60, I recommend. Do you have creative production? Do you have a creative production bandwidth, right? So are you able to test multiple creatives per week? Do you have a system behind that? And I've mentioned this many times because it's very, very important, right? And then do you have, strong attribution, right? Hyros, there's a few others, but, that's what we use. Because you don't want to be reliant just on like using Google Ads, the Google platform for tracking. And just a quick mindset thing, this didn't happen overnight. Okay, this shit, like it was a lot of work, a lot of effort. It was fun. There was a lot of headaches, a lot of tense moments. But, I think this is just what separates winners from losers in this game is just being able to stay focused over a long period of time and being able to consistently give strong inputs over a long period of time. I think ultimately that's how you win in any field you're in life, right? Just being able to stay consistent, being able to stay focused, and just not like feeling defeated after like an obstacle or two obstacles, right? There's always going to be BS you deal with, right? To this day, there's so much shit and obstacles I have to deal with on a daily basis, but I've kind of rewired my mind into viewing it as a positive, right? Like I'm playing a video game or some shit. So that's definitely one important thing. And, mindset is going to be important as you do scale up. But yeah, this was the breakdown. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to drop, make sure you guys follow me on X. I'm going to drop a lead magnet and actually an in-depth Google Doc going into more detail about this and giving some examples and all of that sort of stuff. If you want this implemented for your brand, of course, there's going to be a criteria. I don't really work with beginners, but feel free to book a call. Join my Telegram as well. I'm dropping a lot of source there as well. And yeah, comment below which videos you want to see next, and see you guys next time.